Jaime Murray.
Oh my God, if you'd been with Eddie for your first
Well, if you notice, he kept stealing my job. I was supposed to do Q&A.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, I'll do it. Do we need this microphone?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you sing?
Not public. You know what? This has nothing to do with anything. But I was on Apple News, and they have hotels contests with basic mirrors, and they have like a recording studio in the shower, and so it's like all over Belgium and all these places, and so you basically record yourself singing in the shower. That's cool. You submit it to the hotel that you're at.
Point though that you're in a space that you don't have to worry.
Sometimes some people are shy. They don't really look at the right in the shower. Is gone, you know, and then it's like, hey,
Because there's no recording device.
So before we get started, questions from our audience, I thought I would use this question to ladies. When each one of you got started in your careers, where did you envision your careers go? Are you on the path that you want to be on? And where do you see yourself going in your careers?
Gracious.
That's early.
Pay my gas bill. No, actually, now we talk about envisioning and manifesting and all these things. I didn't really, I didn't look that far into the future. I didn't have huge amount of self-worth, actually, to be honest, when I was young. I didn't. I went to drama school and I didn't feel so good, and I actually went to a drama school called Drama Centre, and it's known in the business as Trauma Centre. Actually, a really abusive school. I think it's probably changed quite a lot now, but it was quite famous for the abuse of kind of the two kind of people that ran the school. It was a method acting school, and we kind of felt like we deserved it, and that's what we needed to do to become a good actor. But it was actually the last thing that I needed personally, as a young woman. I just kind of left, I used to, well, I actually still get nervous in auditions, but I used to kind of like fall apart in auditions. I used to kind of, come out in hives and get hot and bothered and shaky, and I was just trying to hold my shit together, to tell you the truth. So I'm not sure what I really envisioned for myself, but I was just really grateful when I started working. But I think that, I would have been much better to envision and to kind of have conversations like this and thought processes like that, but it just wasn't in my consciousness, I came from quite humble beginnings and humble people, and we didn't talk about envisioning, we just talked about kind of, exactly.
I read Romeo and Juliet when I was a kid. I still remember I went across the road and Diana was my best friend, was Diana, you have to read this movie, I made him sit there for like hours.
Your friends acting?
I was in charge.
I see that.
And I decided that I wanted to be an actor. I didn't tell anyone because my parents really want me to. And I actually went to university for math when I was like 13. And like I secretly applied to drama school, didn't tell anyone because I had a full ride to go study engineering, and I came back and got a scholarship to go study theater. I had to go break it to my parents that I wanted to go into the arts, which they still don't understand. But it's interesting. I've always known that I wanted to be an actor, but to plot your path in this world, I mean, I didn't know I didn't know what that meant, or how to navigate the industry, or how to make choices. I never wanted to be famous. I think the trajectory for people who are chasing that is much different. That wasn't ever what I was chasing. So my path sort of has been, so you just sort of run into stuff. And it's only been recently, until after Warehouse, where I actually was able to take a step back. And the great thing about doing the show for 5 years is that it affords you a little bit of financial stability, which in this business there isn't a lot of. I'm very fortunate to have that. I took a step back, and I wanted to do projects that I really believe in. And everyone's like, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, I've been very picky about what I wanted to do. Yeah, and just the type of roles, especially as I've gotten older, that are available, and how competitive it is for these wonderful roles, which we now see a lot of on television, but you're competing with people like Orlini and, Oscar winners. So I sort of took a step back a couple of years ago and was like, what do I want? And the answer to that question was, I want to tell stories that matter to me. And how do I do that? Being an actor is quite a powerless profession. You're sort of pushed by the currents of who they're casting and what's hot. And so I was like, how do I do that? And I was like, well, I know I can write. So then I started writing. So I wrote for 4 years, and it was the first one I was like, I can't show this to anyone. The second one, this is pretty terrible too. The third one, I was like, well, this is just getting embarrassing. I was like, okay, I can start. And so I basically taught myself how to write, and now I'm really interested in putting together shows about subjects that mean a lot to me, and about women, about relationships that I want to see between women. And I think that the interesting thing that sort of kicked that off was the whole Bering thing, because I realized that there were dynamics in women's relationships that weren't being told.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to be a part of a community that does that. So that's what I want. That's amazing.
And mother-daughter stuff as well.
Yeah,
That's really interesting and rich.
You don't see dynamics between, the Hollywood narrative has always been competitive with women. And, we were even talking about the Bering thing yesterday, because Jaime is obviously a very beautiful woman. But the thing that I found attractive about her was how smart she was. Immediately when I started talking to her, I was like, oh my God, this woman is fantastic. But you don't see that relationship portrayed in media. You don't see two women.
Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but actually that was really the first role that I played where it wasn't about the way I looked. It was, I played shows where I was on one show and it was like all men and I was the only woman, and that was my first job at drama school, and we were actually con artists with
Hustle.
and that was amazing, and there was so much richness and amazingness in that job, and those men were wonderful. But on the other hand, I was 25 and I was on set, everyone behind the camera was male, all my cast was male, and I was often dressed up. I was a con artist like to a year, and I felt very vulnerable. And then Dexter, I'm like a psychopathic, and other than that, I'm going off to castings all The girl that your boyfriend's cheating with. She's the bitch. I'm like, oh God, you know, that, first of all, that doesn't embody, that isn't who I am as a person. I can do that, but also, I don't think it wasn't written by a woman. Like that's not a reality. And then I'm playing a stereotype which isn't furthering the cause and is actually kind of chipping away at my psyche as well. So playing Helena was really amazing, and it is interesting that she was, you know, we flipped that. She was actually based on a man, and actually maybe that was what gave the writers the freedom to allow her to be a fully, you know, better, more well-rounded and not so sexualized woman. So, you know, slowly we'll get there.
Yeah.
But did either of you ladies see Feud, the thing they did about like Jim Cropper?
I did, yeah.
So, my question is, now with social media and TMZ and all that stuff, but like, have you, in your, experiences, do you see the kind of competitiveness? Because they were really catty. I mean, they were horrible to each other. And do you see any kind of that really passionate, vengeful kind of competition on sets now?
I think we live in a world where, as women, we're told that we're in competition with one another. And I think that it takes a lot of self-awareness to break that narrative for yourself. Like, for example, I can look at Jaime and be completely threatened by her, right? And feel ashamed that I don't look like her. Or I can appreciate her for the human that she is. And I think as women, we're taught to feel ashamed of our bodies and how we look, that we don't fit inside a certain box, that we don't look like a certain ideal. Therefore, we lash out with other women when they are threatening to us. And I think that is a dynamic.
And we also talk that there's not enough, you know, there's not enough for us. And so we're pitted against each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, sucks.
In reality, I think, and especially as I get older, I see women, we're amazing. Mothers are amazing. What is happening there? That you raise a child, you have a full-time job, and you keep a family together. Women are superheroes. We can multitask. Give a dude a laptop and a phone and see what happens. We really are extraordinary. And the fact that I think we've been so misaligned is because men are innately afraid of our power. Mm-hmm. I think. I really do. And you know, even if you look at history, we're going to mistake.
There's like lots of groups now, maybe things like goddess work and breath work and kind of connecting to your power, and it's all about kind of connecting to your womb energy, and whether you choose to procreate or not, you do have in your body part of your body which it creates life. There would be no human species without it, and that's magic, that's spirit, that's God, that's whatever you want to call it, and the beginning of all creation. And whether you want to have kids or not, like there's ways of through breath work and through centering, through meditation, connecting to that creativity and pulling that energy up and having it flow through your body and being fully embodied. And I think that, that may have been scary, over time for men, and I think that that's where burning at the stake, and it was that power, it was that constantly trying to repress that power.
Yeah. Well, you feel like you've been robbed of your right to speak. It's so interesting. My voice is actually down here. This is how I actually talk. But now I talk up here because it's a lot less threatening to people when I speak like this. And I wasn't even conscious of that for a really long time. And then if I get pissed, I'm like, oh, here we go. My Eddie voice.
It's interesting because so you're actually kind of going out of your way not to threaten men, and then I don't know, I've only ever been an actress, so I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but often I'm like, oh God, how do I disarm this woman as well? How do I make this woman feel okay and know that I'm not a threat, that I am a friend, that I am a sister, that there's no, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's a big energy production. It's a lot of energy that you're expending, and it'd be really great if we could all be like, hey, the dogs are off.
Safe space.
Friends, safe space.
Safe space. I think we're getting there, but I think we have a ways to go as well. And I think one of the reasons that I want to tell stories with the narratives that I want to see, that enhancing the dynamics between women, is because I think that the narratives we see on television and in film,
on the front covers of magazines,
on
the articles we read.
yeah, thus far do pit us against one another. And I think that, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, So
What produced the Kardashians?
tell us why.
She was in the Oval Office advising Donald Trump. What the fuck?
I'm sorry, but my pussy ain't up for grabs.
Worried what it would be like without you.
Bellow.
We get to do this without any weird jokes.
Yeah.
All right, so we have our first question.
Hi guys. So this actually loops into what you guys were saying about creating community and bringing women together and that kind of thing. I feel like you've managed in Warehouse to create a kind of carve out a narrative space that brought together a really strong community of smart women, and I have notes. And a lot of us went all in on that narrative when we should have known better, and we should have known better because ultimately the show said, this is not for you. This was in fact not for you. We went in all in on you guys, and the show ultimately said, no, this was about the straight couple. But the community of us, those of us who responded to you, we still exist. We're still here. So first, I'm wondering if you could talk about what it means or meant to have created this larger space of community, because you sort of touched on that already, Bill. But and then also, secondly, and I'm sorry, it's a two-part question. Because you were able to do this through those acting voices you were talking about yesterday, through just the kapow kind of chemistry that you guys have together, would you consider taking that kapow chemistry and doing something with it in the future?
I'd love to work with Joanne again.
Yeah.
And I'd love to kind of, we have such great chats about stuff and kind of, what's going on in our minds and hearts and, the kind of stuff that we've learned and how we're evolving and what we're still getting stuck on. And it's very nuanced, and I'd love to kind of explore that, those relationships. And you know what? She's actually really great. So I think I feel really good working with her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to address our love for no brainer. Yeah, I can't express my love enough. Also, so wonderful and subtle and gorgeous girl. Always. Really sparkles. But to address the first part of your question about Warehouse, or comment, I guess, about Warehouse saying it's not for you, I never really saw it that way. And it's interesting.
It actually, I would want clarification. What do you mean? What wasn't for you? What, the relationship that we were creating?
Yeah, kind of, because like the last time we
Well,
started.
we kind of snuck it in there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, see, this is what I'm saying, like, we went all in on that, knowing that it was probably never going to become like manifest as part of the.
Well, there
I wish I had maybe lent into it a little bit at some point, but
it wasn't, the show was never about relationships, it was about the warehouse.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And everything sort of, Jack did come to me to honestly, to be fair. He did come to me with a whole freezing my eggs, getting Eddie as a sperm donor scenario. And I watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had been, I fought really hard on that show for her. I fought really, really hard, and also I fought really hard to make the relationships, with Micah and Claudia and HG, and to really not go the competitive route with it. And by year 5, I was a little worn out. And so I was so upset with the fact that they were ending her wanting to have a child. I just kind of was like, why does she need to want a kid? Why does she have to want a child? Why? The warehouse is her kid. This is a woman who's obsessed with her work, and I never really understood that storyline, so I sort of tapped out. I was just like, yeah.
Again, it might be a bit of a male, kind of it is kind of, thank God we're now starting to, make more TV and film and write and direct more.
Because the narrative of a woman's story doesn't have to end
You
with a
are
child.
also saying was a female man, 90%? More. Yeah.
And think about even the set of Warehouse. I was so excited when Jaime came because behind the camera it's all men. And it's cool, but you can only laugh at so many dick jokes, guys. Cool jokes about poo, it's funny the first couple times, and then after that, maybe we're a little bit more existential. It's so nice to have female energy, and it doesn't happen enough, and it's starting to. It's really starting to open up, but it's we need more women to step up. We do. Yeah. Does that answer your question in any way, shape, or form?
Sure.
Next question. Hello.
I ask a lot of artists this question, and I look at an actor's perspective. How do you deal with burnout and just being drained of creativity? Get up from your desk and just take a walk or anything because you're on set.
We were just talking about that.
So you're asking all these questions that we were just
Having conversations about, when I renegotiated for Warehouse 13, I had my lawyers talking about periods and stuff. How I fought for it.
and they had.
Years because I was so tired.
But that's the thing as well. I said this to you. You're working 17-hour days, and then you start at you're up at 4:30, 5:30 on Monday morning. You're doing 17-hour days, and then it should be an 11-hour turnaround, right? Unless they break the turnaround. And then so by the time you get to Friday, you're starting at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're working until 6 or 7, 8.
Till dawn, until maybe there's a light.
Yeah.
And then they start you again at 4 a.m. on Monday.
And
Especially, think about Jaime with a huge clients who had to go into hair and makeup on top of
2.5
that.
hours before everybody else. And we do have a monthly cycle which needs to be taken care of. but then also we do really want to be treated equally as well, and we want to be, we are, strong, but it's also different. We're not kind of messing up your whole, hormonal and endocrine system. Men are lucky that they have a cycle of life, not a monthly cycle. Well, the monthly cycle is amazing as well, but it just doesn't fit very well with 70 nowadays. And so both of us had ended up getting quite ill, and then kind of like trying to deal with that on our own, because we don't want people to know that we're unwell until you reach breaking point, and then everyone thinks we're a crazy fucking bitch.
Yeah.
I've been sitting on this for 6 months. So yeah, it's really hard, and like having boundaries, and I do feel like often, on some of these shows, you're constantly, trying to kind of fight for your rights, fight for the rights of your character, fight for the rights of your health, fight for the rights to sleep, and as women, you're really bad about that, because you're asking for things, and we're taught not to ask for things, to appease, to smile, to say thank you, so it can be quite a struggle, and I think that, women actresses have over the years got the reputation of being a little crazy or being difficult, and actually you're not really being difficult. You're not really being difficult, you're just trying to survive, right?
Yeah, and I think that what we've seen in the past year or 2 years with all of these narratives coming out, this whole Me Too movement, is how afraid women have been to speak up. That we've literally been robbed of our voice. And I think right now we're sort of riding a crest where that's becoming acknowledged in a way. We're so afraid also if we're difficult and somebody hears about us, we might not get cast. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep my mouth shut so I can work. The fear of pissing off the people in power in an industry that is capricious at best, and is not fair, frankly. Like, if you want a fair shot, get out of Hollywood. That's not the way the industry works. We sit on a lot. But it's also kind of amazing because you are forced to become this entity, without all of the pressure of the industry and my frustrations and feeling sidelines and my utter anger at not having a voice. I have created a series because of that. It's what you do with it. And I think that, that's how a diamond becomes a diamond. I put it under a lot of pressure.
I've also become the therapist for all of my friends, and all of my female friends, some of my male ones too, but and I think that, and they're, most of my friends are not actresses, right? And it's like, I'm often like, well, what is it that you want? Well, how do you feel? Is that really how you feel? Or is that really what you want? Or has your wants got so tied up with pleasing others that you actually don't know what you want anymore? Like, you need to get clear on that. You need to meditate on that. And I actually think that that's because at such a young age, we get to kind of like fight for our rights. And I'm always kind of trying to encourage my sisters, my female friends, to actually get in touch with that, because we're not conditioned to be in touch with those feelings, and I think personally that it makes us sick. I think it makes us ill, and so I think that the more we get in touch with our most authentic selves and what we want and what makes us feel good and our instincts, right? A lot of us are really out of touch with our instincts because we want to please and we want to fit in. But actually, that's what makes us sick.
Hi, my name is Becca. I'm from Brazil, and my question is for Jaime. I'm a Time fan, and I just want to know how was work with the cast, like especially Lana and Jennifer. What was work with the cast of Time?
Oh, the Once Upon a Time cast.
The Once Upon a Time cast.
Oh, they were amazing. Well, that was a family that been together for
Mike.
7 weeks.
What's my name?
Oh, there it is.
They've been together for 7 years, so it's a finely honed machine and a family, with everything that a family entails. But and I think that after 7 years, everyone's grateful that they had that on. But oh hello.
Oh, no.
They're
Ready to leave.
Yeah.
You're good.
Am I-
Small print. Yeah.
am I good?
Ooh, man.
So I think that there was a sense that school was out. School was out. But I love working with them. They're awesome. I think Jen's here today, right? Yeah. I'm excited to see her today. I really enjoyed the scenes at the end of the show where I had her in the mental institution. It was really, really good stuff, that was. I don't really have that many scenes with Lana, but she's a big Grateful Dead, she's a Deadhead fan.
Wow.
And I recently took her to a concert, so we were bonding with that. She's a wild one. Oh yeah, she is. So yeah, I love working with them more, I love working with them more. And then the person that I really bonded with actually was Giles Natalie, who played my grandson. I never thought I'd say that. It's like big shocking lad, and he's my grandson in the show.
Hot frame.
So cute, and I just love him so much. If you ever get a chance to come to a convention where we're both there, he actually reminded me a bit of a young Tony Karen, actually. Yeah, he's wild. So.
I'm getting this more hot.
Oh, good. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
You don't have
Watching
to
the show,
sneak.
it was being in total awe. I was wondering when you guys kind of realized there was something like magical happening, at least between like your two characters chemistry-wise. I remember watching like Time Will Tell and all those episodes and just being wondering like how did all that like build up to be what it was? If that makes sense? Like chemistry-wise?
About the chemistry, about how we felt about the chemistry.
Yeah, like
how we.
when did you realize that something magical was happening? Because you guys were able to take over like an entire board of people in like 2 episodes. Like how?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we were just actors working off one another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just moment to moment work.
But sometimes when you work with actors, everyone has a different technique and a different process. And sometimes, people come in and you're working with people or someone's on a show for a long time and they're just doing their thing. And you're like, okay, now it's my line. And I'm going to do the best that I can. And, sometimes that looks perfectly fine on camera and you just kind of try and do the best you can. But then you're working with other people and it's like, this person's playing with me. This person wants to play. Oh, there's a light in their eyes. There's something going on. Oh, this take is different to the one before, and what's going to happen in the next one? So there's like a sense of kind of an energy flow and life in a scene, which you don't always get, right?
Yeah.
It's a gift.
It is. And just to have someone to be like, basically it's like tossing a ball. To have somebody, somebody tosses it one way, you catch it from it, you're like, oh, this feels good, and you just keep tossing it. And so we just sort of happened upon it and started to play. And
She also is so gorgeous. You try saying your lines, looking into those eyes and not thinking something. I'm just a woman here.
I don't think that we're two people who think outside the box. I think it didn't even cross my mind to not play that energy with her. Because I was like, this is interesting, and this guy.
And also, there was a lot of kind of, although it wasn't written that way, there were a lot of themes that apply to lovers in our relationship. And, themes of kind of trust, of betrayal, of kind of, begging for forgiveness, all that sort of stuff that doesn't often happen in a platonic relationship. So it didn't lend itself to some of the stuff as well.
Yeah.
I don't think so that you work with it because honestly, you just try to kind of fake very hard.
Yes. Taking my tits off.
I don't think ever a time was just like, it's two more takes.
That's what being professional. Yeah, that is what being professional is, and that's when you really need to dig into your box and really use your training. And the playing between action and cut is a gift. And that's a gift, and that's what we do it for. But sometimes it's kind of painful, and sometimes it's just a job, and that's what we have to do. So we kind of put your game face on it and professional. But it happens all the time. Sometimes they're the sweetest people, but they just there's no there, and they kind of they're not even trying to connect. They're not kind of like reading your impulses. They're not even looking at you sometimes. And they just or they don't have the lines. Or they're doing kind of I was going to say I won't just say when, but I worked with somebody at some point in my life. And it was like he made all of his decisions about everything he was going to do, and actually everything that I should do before we came to set. And his ideas weren't that great. They were not that great. They were like so on the nose, and he would also it was I mean I was having to do a lot of planning because obviously he was he was the star of the show, and I didn't want to upset him, and he would get furious at me when he would play this thing that he had decided
That you were going to react to it.
I was going to react a certain way, and then I would react a different way, and he'd be like, this whole theme is not working because she would be doing this, and she would be quicker or more upset or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I thought about that, and then I just thought it's a really obvious choice, and actually this is my choice. Well, it's just not working, it's not smart. This is the way I'm doing it. Next question? You can say anything.
It pretty much encapsulated all of the times that I've been like, I really enjoy doing that to people.
Doing what?
Well, doing unexpected shit. So people have to step up. I mean, that's what I do. I worked through a shoe with someone during the scene. I was like, take the fuck off.
I was in the eye.
Yeah, I don't really.
Listen to what my character's saying to you that affect you.
Yeah, and sometimes if they don't want to play, fine.
But what about the actors? Have you noticed this? It's happened to me recently. You're in a scene and you do something, and they're like shouting in your face or something, in a scene. They're meant to be shouting or whatever. And then you whisper back. And then the next take is whispering. The thing that I was doing, now I can't do that thing. Because they're now both whispering. And then they pick up on the tempo, they start like mirroring you, they don't know they're doing it.
Yeah, a lot. Stuff.
Yeah, it's called that. Yeah. I was like, that was my choice.
Yeah, but you just have faith that you're smart.
Hi. So you've been talking about like how powerful women around her, it's really threatening. On the show, Pete and Steve both kind of have like a power. You know, Pete has his vibes, and Steve can tell when people are lying. So I was wondering if your characters had a power like that, what do you think it would be? Or do you think they did, and yeah, it's just not as explicitly stated, and what is it?
She was the smartest person in the room. Always.
Yep.
My power was a Yeah, and you know, it's interesting in this industry, the way that people will try and, as a woman, as we've been talking about today, when they try and speak up, or I never really learned how to keep my mouth shut. Why should you? I mean, you know, so as I've gotten older, I've sort of realized how to tone it down and to perhaps make it a little bit more palatable and maybe not be as such a sledgehammer.
So most people want this. I thought you guys liked it. She gave me the best bit of advice on that. I was actually on set and Spartacus was amazing. Actually, I've forgotten about this. I love working with Spartacus. So many reasons, and the language was amazing, the costumes, like, I love Lucy, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that was hard is because it was quite an ambitious, you know, with you know, what it was doing and how fast we had to move. The director would often have blocked out who got to say. So it was kind of like, you know, and there was this one particular day, and I didn't like it very much, but there was this one particular day that, you know, he was like, you know, here, and as you say this line, you kind of walk over here, and I was like, okay, and no, I can't walk forward on that line because what I'm actually saying is something that is kind of like that, but no, it's not saying, I'm not going to step back, but no, we can step forward on that line, and we kind of end up kind of getting into it. And the way it works on that show is you kind of come in when you're half ready, before you finish, you kind of do the rehearsal, and you go back for, like, to get finished while they did the lighting and everything, and then you come back. And so we kind of got to sing, and I was like, oh, and Lucy came out to me, and she's like, hey, Jaime. So, like, thing is, like, the best way to do it is, like, just when he tells you what to do, just kind of ignore it, go, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, okay, great. And then when you come back, he'll have forgotten what he said. You can just do what you want to do. He'll think it's his idea. And you'll say to him, that was a great idea. You want him to do exactly what you want. Fucking shit! It's not always about not saying what you want. It's about sometimes when, and also you've got this masculinity where there's men everywhere, and you're kind of got all this kind of like, you know, unresolved issues. You probably need some therapy for. And there's a bank of men there. They're like, I can't say anything. I can't say anything. It comes out, and it's actually like, if you fucking take a gig with that face. It's like shining a light, like, not aggressive way, assert your power, and actually also kind of know that there's other things that are really yeah. Okay, well, seriously. You're a friend of mine.
Hi there, my name is Jessie. We've been talking about women's voices, the importance of women's voices and telling our own stories. And Joanne, I think it's amazing that you're writing your own series, and I know a really talented British actress who should probably be cast in that. But I think you're doing I think we are starting to see a change already. So we are seeing more women now powering shows. I think Shonda Rhimes is an obvious example. Emily Andress in the sci-fi genre. So for Joanne, I wonder if there's any women showrunners or writers that you really look to as role models or maybe mentors as you sort of embark on that part of your career. And then for Jaime, are there any showrunners who are women or head writers at least that you would love to work with or cast that you would love to work with on a female-powered show?
want to. I want to be one.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Yeah. That's why I'm creating stuff. Because I want it so bad. Martin Oxon, Yasudu.
Oh, yeah.
Lena Dunham and Jane Comer, I think they just wrote that, but whatever. Reese Witherspoon's company was amazing. There are so many. I actually have a list on my laptop. There's a document that I just keep adding to because there's been so many in the past like couple of years. Yeah.
What now in Russia?
No. It's out.
Yeah. She's been really vocal about the whole movement, and I think she
Yeah. She co-authored Lean In by Sandberg, Sheryl Sandberg. Yeah, I mean, well, and Nell was one of the first female writers in comedy rooms, which, can you imagine, Dave Letterman?
That's what the new book is about. It's actually about being a female writer in male dominated countries.
Yeah, so, yeah, to get to that question, those are the ones off the top of my head, but like, there is a list. My plan is to try and sit down, get in the rooms with all these Liz Merriweather is another one. You know, try and find a home for the children. You know, one of the relationships is so interesting. I was talking to a particular, she's like, well, what kind of female relationships, you know, are you trying to write about? And I said, well, picture this. Two women who sleep with the same men, and instead of getting married to each other, become lovers. Have you ever seen that story?
Yeah. That seems like an obvious story.
Right. Something like that. What she said.
So I was just wondering, you've been talking very much so about connecting with yourself, and I was just wondering if you guys had an artifact, what would it be?
My vagina.
It is magical.
A magic button that can bring you to instant climax.
I think, you know, I love I think one of the things that Jamie and I have in common is we're both seekers a little bit. You're looking for your higher self and your most powerful self and how to connect to that. And maybe destroying, I think the world teaches you to care about a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily care about. I think humans just want to be connected. We don't need to look a certain way or have certain things or have a certain amount of money to be fulfilled. That's not what humans want. Humans just want connection with other humans. If there was an artifact that could make us all realize that would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, all this stuff that we're talking about, whether it's between women and women and men and women, it's all about separation, right? Because if we didn't feel separate, we wouldn't be able to get into these narcissistic tendencies. Feeling separate is what makes us compete with each other, feel threatened by each other, want to kind of, fight each other. And I think that maybe kind of going back to a time before the patriarchy, when we were connected to each other, but the only way that we can be connected to each other is by really being connected with nature and Mother Earth. If you look at indigenous cultures, when they were honoring the mountains and the plants and the spirit animals, they were all understanding that we were all part of the same organism. And when you feel like that, you feel connected, you can't be separate, and none of this stuff can even exist.
Thank you.
Hi there, this is for Joanne, so I'm kind of scrambling to rephrase because you kind of just mentioned it in regards to show running and stuff. but I was wondering what your overall goals are with the content you've been creating, and then also just like what you're most excited about in regards to making your own stuff now.
I think that I just want to tell stories that I think are important to tell. You know, I really feel like I think everybody is unique and wonderful, and like I said, I'm so angry of us, especially right now with this administration in the United States. My God, you guys.
That is like the biggest sign of separation that they could possibly do.
Yes, I'm constantly, you know, repulsed and angry and upset by how divided and divisive this all is, and how much money exists in this country. That is, anyway, I can't even go on. But I think the goal is to tell stories, to have narratives that people can learn and attach to, that mean something, that can also entertain. Because I don't think that information and entertainment are mutually exclusive. I think that they can be combined, and I think it can be a way to activate people and empower people towards something for the greater good. And that's what excites me about becoming a storyteller, because I think that that's possible, and I think that we're ready for it.
The power of storytelling, you know, is really profound. You know, the news and you know, is thrown about all the time now as fake news, you know, and facts don't really even mean anything. Science doesn't anymore, and people distrust all of that. And actually, you know, I get it. You know, there's the news, all of the stations feel like it's all on the senses. It's all kind of sensationalized, and you know, how many individuals can you kind of talk about, you know, something awful? How many angles do you have to show it from? Like, it's actually, it's almost macabre. It's almost like kind of, you know, fear-mongering masturbation. It's like, it's, you know, it's horrific. But with storytelling, with the nuances, you can tell these stories through a human perspective. And if people can relate to that, they can kind of like those characters, or even dislike those characters, depending on what the story you're telling. You're having an impact. You're able to kind of get into their psyche without them kind of just kind of projecting.
You create empathy.
Yeah, empathy. And if there was empathy, there would be no Donald Trump. If there was empathy, true empathy, there would be no separation.
Hi. So I was wondering if either of you want to work with actresses who have played women who love women. Like, also Joanne, like I know you're in a lot of indie movies, and I was wondering if you'd like to work with like Molly Parker.
I'm not being a writer, but I love her work. It's so ethereal. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm having to, what?
It's microphone, we can't really hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit shaking.
It's a safe space.
I was wondering if you guys would like to work with other actresses who have played like women who love other women, like gay actresses, like gay characters or bi characters, those kind of people.
Yeah,
like,
I don't consider, like, I don't look at people as based on sexuality. I don't, because we live in a world that has been binary, but I don't believe in a binary system. I believe in a spectrum, like a rainbow. So, it doesn't pop for me. You know, that's why this relationship was so easy to do, because I don't have a category in my head about people. I think people are people. People are sexually attracted to whoever. And maybe it's because I have that fluidity in myself, or maybe, but I think a good actor is a good actor. It doesn't matter who they're fucking. You know what I mean?
Because that's part of the separation as well, you know what I mean? Like, you know, might be an amazing actress who's never played anything like that before, who's only played very straight or, you know, very heterosexual, but her next role could be something magnificent. So, you know, as long as somebody is authentic and, you there's that light in their eyes and they want to play, then, they're going to be amazing to work with, and they're going to be good for the cause.
Yeah, and then we have Cherry Jones and Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
We do have these women and Ellen DeGeneres, women who have been very vocal about their sexuality, which is important, I think, just for acceptance, for mainstream acceptance. But I don't look at people like that. Never have, never will.
Do you have any advice for any budding actor or artist in our audience? What words of advice would you give to young women, really any woman that's trying to break into something to be there? What advice would you give to that?
You're immeasurably powerful, and the only person who knows that is you. And the only person who's standing in the way is you. And I think that the older I get, I realize how much we can get in our own way. And if you could do anything else, go do it. Because if you don't have a real passion for it, if there's anything else that you want to do, please go do it. Because this industry is not for the faint of heart. I think it would be my advice.
Well, most other industries, it's like, it's like an X plus Z equals Y situation. You put in this many hours and you put in this much focus and determination, you're going to get, certain results. And this is one of those careers, so make sure that it really is passion. But yeah, connect to your instinct. I would say psychology is a really great place to look if you want to be an actor or an artist of any kind, to have kind of that layer of depth to your work. Whether you're painting, whether you're singing, kind of constantly trying to evolve, constantly trying to understand yourself and go deeper and connect with your instinct and the truth.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing, because I found this very, very helpful the past couple of years. Be careful what you consume. We live in such a culture where we see all this shit and all. Curate what goes into your mind and into your heart. Be careful. I'm not on social media, that's one of the reasons. Because it's just too, the kind of life that you want. Which side are you going to feed?
Which will feed you.
Yeah. Yeah. Feed the heart. Be careful.
Well, we just want to thank both of you so very much. You're brilliant. I just think both of you were just, well, I'm speaking for me, so. So really captivating, and it's just such a great thing for me, and I think all the women out here, just to have such great examples of what it is to be passionate about yourself and committed to mind, strong of heart, and center. And this is really beautiful. So thank you both, Jaime and Joanne, for being here.
Congratulations for your
First panel.
Photos next, and I think that we'll probably be back at the tables at about 12:30-ish.
Thank you all so much for being here with us.
If you want to go.
And as I said before, go on the app, rate the panel, let us know what you think. Thank you everybody for being here with us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please exit through the doors in the back of the room. Again, please exit through the back
I'm gonna
doors.
leave it in my bag. Okay.
I'm just gonna now?
Oh, I don't want to leave. Take a picture with your phone. With my phone? Yeah. Oh.
Well, I don't know, like I'm obviously check out. I don't know. And I won't know.